Well, hello there, everyone, and welcome to another edition of The Metagame, the live streaming show right here on the Dice Tower, where we not only talk about board games, but we sometimes talk about talking about board games, and media creation and content creation and all of that good stuff. But today, we are going to be talking about upgrading and expanding games and deluxe versions of games. Both deluxe versions of games that have been created and maybe even creating your own deluxe versions of games. It's a topic that comes up every now and then because every now and then a board game company creates a deluxe version of a game that just they go all out in and they go way overboard, and it can almost cross that line between board game and just being art in some ways, which is always interesting to see. So I have a few examples queued up, and what I did this week is I actually posted a post on the BoardGameGeek's forums for the Dice Tower, asking people for any examples or wish lists they had for super combo mega deluxe versions of games. And so we'll have some of those forum posts to go through and some other pages bookmarked with some examples of some of these games. And probably the best part, though, is I won't be having this discussion all by myself. I have also our live chat studio audience is with me as always. We have the YouTube chat that's streaming along with me as we play. And as always, as we are streaming the show, I invite anyone who is sitting in the chat there to join the discussion by adding the hashtag TMG, here it is, to anything they post in the chat. Question, comment, whatever, general Q&A question, something added to the discussion on this topic, what have you. Add that to your post, and because what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my browser's search tool to highlight that little hashtag. It's going to make all the posts in the chat that have that hashtag kind of highlighted and float to the top, and that'll help me find them. All right. I did notice today, I always have this conundrum when I start a new episode, today especially, because one thing that I noticed is that when I came into the chat, there was already a lot of chat already going on. So do I ignore the existing chat and just start interacting with where the show starts and miss all the other previous chat that people have posted? Or do I go through and start with the chat that was here even before the show began and then slow down getting through the chat? Honestly, I don't know. So fortunately, I have a big group of people chatting with me right now, and I'm sure they can give their opinion on that as well. And considering that a lot of the people that are already here are people that were chatting ahead of time, I probably assume what their response will be to that. But let's start talking about deluxe versions of games. Now, I am the first to admit that I really enjoy a game upgrade. Now, even if it's not a completely condensed, self-contained, produced a deluxe edition of a game, I am a sucker for upgrading games. And I have some examples of there too. But I was trying, as I started working on this episode, I tried to think back to when my love of upgrading games and making deluxe versions of games started. And oddly enough, I don't think it started with board games at all. I was thinking back to playing Street Fighter II with one of my best friends on the Super Nintendo way back when that was, the newest, hottest thing. And we would play Street Fighter II all the time. And we got to the point where we would actually roll. We got like, if they had, there was up to 16 or 18 characters to choose from at one point. So we'd roll like 20-sided dice to kind of draft the characters, randomize the characters that we were going to play that way. We did kind of all sorts of little tournaments and different structures like that to mix and match which characters we play against each other and keep the stats of who won against who. And it was great. We played it a lot. whenever you play a game that much, eventually you get to the point where you think, how could we take this experience to the next level? So I remember one day we were sitting there in my friend's living room playing Street Fighter 2, and I had an epiphany. I said, you know what we should do, or what would be really, really neat to do, is if we were to create some sort of weird circuit board where we could connect electrodes to the Nintendo and then to our bodies all over. And then as we're playing Street Fighter, every time we get jabbed or punched or kicked, we would get a little electric shock, to actually really take physical damage as we're playing the game. That would raise the stakes and really turn Street Fighter into a deluxe edition. And my friend, he looked at me and he put his controller down in mid-game and he said, well, in that case, why don't we just beat the crap out of each other and just skip right to that? And I realized that just because you can upgrade a game in a certain way, maybe it's not necessarily the best thing to do, because after a while you just end up in a street brawl with one of your best friends, and you're not really playing Street Fighter anymore. But I think going back in my memories, I think that might be where one of the instances where my love of upgrading games began. And since then, of course, board games have provided ample opportunity to do this as well. So let's start with some of the some examples here, because in case you're joining us and wondering, what is an example of a deluxe upgraded version of a game? I got some examples there, and I want to know if anyone in the audience has owns or has played these deluxe versions of these games. But what we'll do is we'll start out by looking at what some publishers have done to create deluxe versions of games. And then maybe we'll even talk about just some home-brewed remedies, some ways that you can spice up your games, even if you're not creating a whole new deluxe version, some ways that you can upgrade your games as well. And I thought I had another example here, which I don't, so we'll go to the video. Alrighty, so for example, I combed through my notes and I found a few things, and one of the greatest examples, I think one of the best known super mega deluxe games, super deluxe versions of a game, would be the deluxe version of the Lord of the Rings War of the Ring game. And here we go. Have a picture of it here. Now, War of the Ring is already a pretty intensely detailed, large game. And so a deluxe version of this, I don't know if the map is even bigger than it already is, because in the base game, the map is huge. But I do know that the deluxe version comes in this nifty, dandy, huge wooden box that looks like a giant book. And also all of the minis, and there's a lot of minis. We'll go back over here and you can kind of see some examples of all the miniatures that the game comes with. All the minis come pre-painted in this super mega deluxe version of this game. And as a result, of course, it is a premium item that comes with a premium cost. I don't know if it's even currently in print. I think they do very small print runs every now and then. But you have to check eBay for the prices that the games are currently going at, because they can fluctuate wildly for how much this deluxe version of the game goes for. But the gameplay itself, the rule set and everything else, I think, as we'll find with a lot of these deluxe versions of games, the gameplay is pretty much identical, I believe, to the regular game. And you're just, playing with very greatly detailed, enhanced components, which can be a fantastic way to increase the amount of immersion that you get in these games. If those things didn't enhance the gameplay experience, we wouldn't have this whole side industry of painting minis. We just play with little cubes. But the minis and the painted minis and the presentation, the way that this game looks on the table is just amazing. So what I want to do is I want to find out, as we're chatting, I want to find out if anyone who's in our live chat has played the deluxe version of Lord of the Rings, and if you own it, and if you've played it, and if you felt it was worth it, and why. So that's the first example of a game we got here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to now turn over to the chat, and we're going to work our way towards anyone's response to that question. And I'm going to work my way up there from any of the posts that we've already got. So let's start with the chat, which today is starting with Preyhawk. Hello there, sir. All right, starts off now. This is the general chat that started even before the show began. So this isn't specific to the question that was just asked. This is kind of just a general chat to warm us up. So let's warm up. Okay, Preyhawk mentions the deluxe/collector's editions to games are normally a good amount past what I will comfortably spend on a game. So here we go. Right off the bat, the price point for these deluxe editions is something that is a consideration for people, obviously. Most times I really want to have the game, and the pretty bits don't warrant buying another copy of it. That said, if I do not have the game at all, and the deluxe is not a crazy price, I would most certainly pick it up in that case. But if the game came with a lot of expansions, that may warrant a buy, even if I do already have it. And that is one of the things, thank you, Preyhawk, and you mentioned there not only the price, but you mentioned another point that always puzzles me about these super mega deluxe versions of games. And that is expansions. Yes, the little elephant in the room, the growing herd of elephants in the room as expansions are released. So you get this mega collector's super edition of a game, like our example here, Lord of the Rings, War of the Ring. And I know that this has had one expansion released already, a long time ago, and I'm not sure, but that expansion may already be incorporated into this version of the game. But I know too that it has had recently, earlier this year, I believe, there was another expansion for it that was released. So what if you have the deluxe edition of the game? Do you have the deluxe edition of the game and you have just this new expansion that doesn't match? And you just don't care, and you just ignore the unpainted minis and normal quality cards and stuff that are in that? Or do you wait for the company that created the deluxe version to also create deluxe versions of all of these expansions? And do they even do that? Because in my research, I was having a hard time finding deluxe versions of a lot of the game's expansions. It varies on the game, and we'll get to that as we get to more examples. But in addition to price point, that was the next question that came up, is the potential lack of support of deluxe expansions something that prevents people from getting these deluxe versions of the games as well. And so that's another thing that I wanted to know about, because I really don't, the deluxe games that we have here, I don't think I own pretty much any of them, mostly for the reason Preyhawk that already mentioned. So I'm looking for anyone that has experience with these and how the expansion stuff has fit into their experience playing the game over time as expansions have been released. But in the meantime, let's continue to the next chat comments here with chat regular KabukiKid, who mentions, one that is not on my list yet, so this is great, Orleans Deluxe. Orleans is a nice worker placement Euro game, and the deluxe version enhances all of the components, going from little cardboard chits and stuff to little wooden pieces and stuff. It's kind of a bag building game, so the pieces that you're pulling out of the bag are higher quality pieces and stuff like that. And she mentions Orleans Deluxe is probably the one I am happiest getting. And not only does it come with nice wooden bits, but the wooden discs that you put in your bag are nicer to pull out than chipboard bits. And even though you didn't ask for the worst deluxe editions, oh, here we go. Even though you didn't ask for the worst deluxe editions, I think Power Grid Deluxe is probably the worst. The game is no better looking than the original, and the plastic money chips are terrible, says KabukiKid. Huh, interesting. Isn't Power Grid Deluxe also a different artistic look? Isn't it a completely different looking design? I might be thinking of a different Power Grid product. But I thought that Power Grid Deluxe went in almost this cartoony design, and it was a little bit off-putting to some other people that I mentioned about it. That like, I'm not going to get the game just because of the art style. But I may be thinking of a different one of the recent Power Grid products that they've released. So that's interesting that you mentioned Power Grid Deluxe, because like I said, that's one that wasn't on my list. And it reminds me of another one that actually wasn't on my list, which was one that came out recently. And I believe it was the 10th anniversary edition of Ticket to Ride. And that one, since I hadn't thought of it, I don't have any pictures queued up for it. But the Ticket to Ride edition has bigger board, larger trains, and the trains, like each car of the train have like different, they're different sculpts, and they're painted, and some have animals in them, and they're really, really gorgeous to see on the table. And that one, I never thought of that one as a deluxe edition, but I guess it is, because it's enhanced components, enhanced pieces, and I guess if the Orleans Deluxe and Power Grid Deluxe fit into this mold, the Ticket to Ride edition fits in as well. So I guess there's more deluxe versions of games floating around out there now than I originally thought there were. So let's continue on and try and catch up on the chat. We'll go through the chat for another 5 minutes or so. Then I'll pop over to the next game that I had some samples of. Homemaker Hobbies joins us to mention we don't usually do deluxe unless we get it on Kickstarter. And as for upgrading, we've done a few upgrades ourselves using our 3D printer. Ooh, it's cheaper and you can do it however you prefer. Oh, very interesting to know, Homemaker Hobbies. You are the first person that I have ever interacted with, even in this weird chat fashion, that actually owns a 3D printer. And I gotta say, I am intrigued. This could be a whole topic or series in and of itself. I know that we, Homemaker Hobbies and I, have spoken a lot offline through Twitter and stuff like that. Give me send me a message if you want, and send me some pictures and things of the 3D board game components you've made, and I might have some questions about 3D printers and homemade board game upgrades that maybe we can do in an upcoming show, because that opens a whole universe of possibilities. Some awesome, some treading on like copyright infringement stuff that people have questions about, but there's a whole world of possibilities when it comes to the 3D printer stuff. So in short, cool. All right. Let's continue on through another chunk of comments, and another large one here. Again, we're still in the comments from before the show even started, so I'm going to go through a few here kind of in quick mode here. We have KabukiKid who mentions, if you really want to go old school, says Kabuki, I still have my deluxe Scrabble game from the 80s with the Lazy Susan board and the little divots so the pieces don't slide around. It's a very nice version. Interestingly enough, Scrabble Deluxe. Scrabble is a game that I enjoy, and I've always wanted to get the deluxe version with the Lazy Susan, but every time I go down to the game shop or something to get it, something else has always distracted me, and I come home with a different box instead of Scrabble Deluxe. So one of these days I'm going to have to just go down there, put on like blinders, and just get Scrabble Deluxe, because the Lazy Susan and just the little divots for the pieces, that just seems like it'd be so sweet, so nice. And it also makes me wonder how many other games we could incorporate Lazy Susan technology into. I know that, speaking of upgrades and deluxe versions, I believe on Kickstarter or Etsy or other places, there's at least one, maybe more people have made Lazy Susans dedicated to Dominion. So you put all the decks, all the piles that people are buying from into these little slots in the Lazy Susan, and you just slide the Lazy Susan around on everyone's turn so they don't have to reach across the table. They can just get the cards they want there. So it may be that Lazy Susan technology is vastly underutilized in the board game world, and it may be something that we have to better incorporate into our board gaming. Again, that might be an entire episode in of itself. Different ways to incorporate Lazy Susans into your board gaming. Because if the internet has taught me nothing else, it's that you can talk about everything on the internet, and it's just amazing what people will talk about. So Lazy Susans in board games, that may need to be an episode or entire web series, maybe a dedicated YouTube channel. I think there might be some possibilities there. Okay, let's continue on with talking about the newest escape from the aliens in outer space, which I believe is published by Osprey Games. And it is a kind of hidden movement, social deduction-y type of game where everybody has these little pads and everyone's keeping track of where they are on a spaceship. Some people are aliens trying to capture and kill humans, and some of the humans are just trying to find escape pods and get off the ship, but nobody knows who anyone else is, and nobody knows where anyone else is on the ship. So the newest version of Escape from the Aliens in Outer Space has been dubbed the Ultimate Edition, and is nicer because it has dry erase map booklets rather than just sheets of paper to mark up. It is nice. You have all your maps, and you just, when you're done with the game, you can wipe them clean and use that same map over again, which makes it kind of nice. And KabukiKid continues saying, amusingly though, my favorite deluxeified games are the ones I tricked out myself. Aha, we'll get to that in a minute too. I do a better job than the publishers do at upgrading my games sometimes, and they're also more unique in that way. So there we go. All right. So then I think we have a gap where the show started. So I'm going to go back to the next example I have, and then we'll return to the chat. Okay, so we talked about the War of the Ring, and I think another very popular deluxe edition of a game that came out is for Small World. And this is one that I've heard a lot of people, and here's a picture of it. There we go. This one, I seems to have a lot of people have gone, what? Small World? That's kind of an interesting choice for a game to make a deluxe version for. I'm going to see if I can even increase. There we go. Make the picture even bigger. Small World is an area control type game where you have units on a map, and the map is specifically designed so that there's just not enough room to get around, and it makes conflict between the different players inevitable and speedy. And it's a very simple combat system. And it's a pretty straightforward, some would even call it a gateway level game. But the game has lots of these little cardboard chips and stuff. All the units are little cardboard squares and stuff. And the deluxe edition of this not only changed all of the units to these little wooden tokens. You can see little square wooden tokens instead of cardboard for all your units. Every single other potential thing that could be on the game board, from like extra units like this dragon that can help out certain character races, catapults, pots of gold that the leprechauns can put on the board, but also even the terrain type of stuff, like the mountains that affect how easy it is to take over a space on the board, the mountains and fortresses, everything that can go on the board, it seems, got some sort of either wooden or plastic resin upgrade. And it's just a huge, massive, heavy in weight in physical weight. Doesn't make the actual gameplay any heavier, but it's just huge, massive undertaking, to make this game like this, and it's just beautiful. And a lot of people I have heard talk about this game are like, yes, it is beautiful and it's a fantastic game, but Small World, kind of an interesting choice, they say, for a game to make this super mega deluxe version of. So that's one thing I wanted to ask you guys about Small World. Do you agree or disagree? Is Small World worth making this mega super deluxe version of? Or could those resources better be put into a different game? And if so, what game would you like to see a super mega deluxe version of? Small World, still a viable option for that question, but I'm wondering what game you would have at the top of your list, if not Small World. All right, so let's get back to the another cluster of chat comments here from Gazensha, who says, I like deluxe editions on the provision, there is a catch, on the provision that they're compatible with all expansions, current and future, and not all are. And Gazensha continues, I don't like replacing a regular edition with a deluxe edition. However, did you know that I so prefer the deluxe bits to be sold separately if I already own the game, or even if I don't? That was a well put comment and poorly read one at the same time. That's an interesting idea, taking the deluxe bits for a deluxe edition of a game and making those sold separately, just as a separate upgrade. That's a good idea. Move my little window. That reminds me of one thing I was going to talk about as well, is some of the ways that you can upgrade, because sometimes the little deluxe bits can be sold separately, maybe not from the game publisher directly, but other people. One company that has been doing this a lot, I brought a little sample here, is Stonemaier Games, and from Jamie Stegmaier, people who made Scythe and Euphoria and a bunch of other games. They also have been developing these little boxes. This one is just the lid, but they've been creating these little boxes of board game upgrades. And speaking of Power Grid, this one I happen to have, it has all these little pieces, little trash cans right there that you can see, and all these different little nuclear waste bins in there, and propane. I don't know if there's any propane accessories in the box, but and oil barrels, which are black, which are showing up surprisingly well on this little webcam, etc. And so these are just little bits created by a different company other than the company that created Power Grid, but they are specifically created for use in Power Grid. Another company that I really like the upgrades that they make is called Litco. Their website is litko.net, litco.net. They make fantastic plastic, like 1/8 inch thick plastic things. Colored plastic. They'll make just everything you can think of. Bases for units. They have their own Power Grid sets. They make little houses for Power Grids to upgrade the houses and stuff. So Litco makes these fantastic accessories as well for upgrading games. And again, these aren't coming from the game publishers themselves, but others like Stonemaier Games that are specifically making sets of these upgrades. Now, the caveat to that, the catch, is that these upgrades oftentimes can be just as expensive, if not actually more expensive than the game itself that you're upgrading. So it's really something that's up to you. Is it worth it to me to invest, in this kind of upgrade for this game? Of course, the deluxe versions of the games are a lot more expensive than the regular versions. But it is kind of this, this trade-off. It is almost like just upgrading a game can be just as expensive as buying the game again, or a different game, or even more sometimes. So it just depends where you want to put your money. Speaking of where to put your money, I have another example that I'll get to later. First, let's get back to the chat and work our way up, and then we'll look at another game example of a deluxe version. All right, let's talk about bits. All right. Gazensha then also continued, do oversized versions aimed at conventions count as deluxe editions? Oh, that's a fantastic question. If so, I really like the oversized Star Trek Settlers of Catan I played at UKGE 2015, the UK Gaming Expo 2015. Despite the enterprises in it being fragile and breaking if the dice rolled in their direction. They brought lots of spares, so it seems to have been a known issue with it. That's one thing that you can do at a convention that you can't do in a lot of other places, is lots of times at these conventions, they will actually bring human-sized versions of these games to play. At Origins and Gen Con, I remember seeing the human-sized King of Tokyo with huge dice, and you actually have huge cardboard cutout standees of the different monsters that you're playing in King of Tokyo. So and you're like standing on the board along with them and stuff. So King of Tokyo is one that it's not an edition to buy, but it is a super mega, a way of doing a super mega deluxe version of a game that I hadn't thought of. There's also, I've seen super mega deluxe convention style Settlers of Catan, and Gazensha mentioned Star Trek Settlers of Catan as well. And there's been others as well. Jenga, there's always this huge stacked wood, almost like 2x4s stacked on each other for Jenga, kind of the OSHA nightmare version of Jenga that's stacked up 6 feet high, that people are playing that version of Jenga. I've seen that at multiple conventions as well. So lots of times at conventions, that's kind of this niche. Like I said, these aren't really for sale versions, but to see a really insane board game deluxe version, the convention circuit is definitely a place to find these as well. Okay. Here we go. Again, this is before the chat started. So this is from Kabuki, another mention on War of the Ring Anniversary Edition. Kabuki mentions, I'm currently waiting on the War of the Ring Anniversary Edition because the things that she lists, the upgrades that it has, and let me go back here real quick. This version is what we're talking about. The War of the Ring Deluxe Edition has nicer board, painted minis, hardcover rule books. And she says that her edition ships in February. So they must have just recently done another printing. Okay, so I didn't realize it had even the hardcover rule books. That's pretty cool. They'll make them nice and sturdy and last quite a while. Jumped a little bit. We have, scroll up. Mike Jones, or specifically Mike Jones, no really, is the screen name here. Mike Jones joins us again to mention, I can't remember if a collector's edition of board games, I can't remember one I've ever owned. For me, the best offer would be built-in storage solutions with mines for the expansions, like Zombicide and Pathfinder do this. Oh, that's a good one. I know it seems that a lot of deluxe editions do seem to go in the direction of making sure that the storage is good as well. The War of the Ring version that I've been showing definitely has all of the little slotted plastic trays for holding all the miniatures. Mechs versus Minions that came out earlier this year from Riot Games. I don't know if that would be considered a deluxe edition of a game because it's the only edition of that game, but I know that it had just insanely detailed plastic inserts that were specially molded for all the pieces. So it's got like 5 or 6 of these huge plastic inserts made for it. And when you hit that certain level of upgradedness, deluxivity in a game, it seems like protecting the pieces becomes part of that too. Okay. Oh, and my chat disappeared from that jump. So let me try to get back to where I was real quick, and we will continue on. Eldritch Horror. Takedo. We are getting... Here we go. Here's where we left off, I think. And before we go to the next game, we'll do a couple more little chats here, and then we'll continue on. This one comes from Toyota, who mentions, the only collector's editions of games that I have are Takedo and Ascension. But I have lots of games with expansions, and I have a bit of a completionist issue. That was one of the things I was wondering about, because I think a lot of us who who invest in a board game collection and have that be one of the things that we enjoy doing, it seems like a lot of us that do that do have kind of this completionist mentality. I know it's really difficult for me to pass up an expansion to a game that I have. Even if it's an expansion I don't think I'll use right away or even use all of, there's still that temptation there. And I'm trying to get better with that. But I wonder if the completionist attitude is something that can affect whether or not we get the deluxe versions of some of these games. Oh, and this is weird. I think that this was posted before I even mentioned it. But since I did mention it, we will have Mike Jones mentions Mechs vs. Minions. His opinion on it is, I think Mechs vs. Minions did deluxe from the get-go. And that's the way I like to see it. There's no reason to buy the same game twice just to get the shiny. So with Mechs vs. Minions, the shiny came out first. Maybe they will do, I think I've seen some other games do this. It's rare, but maybe they will retroactively later create the non-deluxe version of the game. But I doubt it in the case of Mechs vs. Minions. But I've seen others, I can't think of any off the top of my head, but some have created a more streamlined, lower price point version of games with lower components after a little while after the initial offering, which was a lot more deluxe, comes out. Kabuki mentions that I just deluxeified my copy of Seven Wonders, a game we haven't mentioned yet. Seven Wonders Duel, specifically. Deluxeified Seven Wonders Duel by adding the metal conflict token and also metal coins to it. Excellent way to do it. Metal coins are fantastic, which is one of the things on my list to get to, which I'll get to in a couple minutes. Before then, though, Preyhawk mentions that I have posed the runts in crazy... I have posed the runts in crazy get-ups... Oh! Seven Wonders. Okay, so I've posed the runts. I believe this is from Mechs vs. Minions. Posed the runts in crazy get-ups and took a pic and put it on a cardboard. Oh, or unless you're talking about your kids. Or runts like if you had baby puppies that were undersized. But let's say we're talking about kids. So posed the kids in crazy costumes and took pictures and put it on cardboard to make new monsters in King of Tokyo. That is elaborate, but fantastic, if I understood that correctly. That's so cool. That's a fantastic, imaginative way to add more monsters to King of Tokyo. I dig it. That's a great idea. And doing that, the possibilities there really are endless. And okay, so we're going to get Daniel, and then we'll go to the next example here. Daniel asks a couple of questions. Do you buy a deluxe version of a game that you already own? And what do you do with the non-deluxe copy? That is an excellent question. I think probably people in the chat are responding to that already. Just from my point of view, I don't have a deluxe version of any games that I already own. And for me personally, the reason why is that in that case, if I want to upgrade a game, I've usually already started upgrading its components by pulling nice pieces out of other games or doing other things to it to upgrade it. And so by the time that a deluxe version of that game rolls around, I've usually already done some things to it to upgrade it in a way, making the upgraded version not something that I have to go out and buy again. So hope that answers your question there. 'Cause that's just my approach on it. I'm usually blinging out the components already to begin with, which makes the deluxe version not as tempting. Okay, but another specific game I wanted to mention that people talked about Small World being an interesting choice for a game to get a deluxe version. I think I tried to think of what was the most surprising choice for a game to make a deluxe version out of. And the one that I came up with, I think won that honor for me, was Takenoko. The Takenoko deluxe version came out several years ago at this point, and it comes in this huge wooden box up here. And Takenoko is this game where you have these little tiles, and you have a farmer who's farming these tiles, and you have this panda that's running around the board eating the bamboo that the farmer is trying to grow and irrigate throughout the game. And so it has these nice little hexagon tiles, and it had these little normal sized miniatures for the farmer and the panda. And it has had these neat little actual stacking bamboo pieces. And then it was announced that this deluxe version of Takenoko was announced, and it made everything bigger. I mean, here you can see the farmer and the panda compared to the size of the little tokens that come with the game. They're just huge, and the dice are huge, and the bamboo is huge, and it fits in this big, huge wooden box, and it's a fantastic presentation to see it on the table, and it's just gorgeous and neat. But the Takenoko was one of those where there was a lot of questions of, is Takenoko really a game that warrants this amount of increased resources and price and everything for a deluxe version? In my research and my notes and everything, Takenoko was the one that I came up with, that while still a fantastic looking deluxe version, was the biggest surprise when it was announced. The one that made the most people, including myself, go, "That's really cool, but it's kind of an interesting choice there for which game to go deluxe with." But people have got it and enjoy it. It's a great convention game if it's in the library at a convention you go to. But it was an interesting choice, at least in my experience. The people I've talked to, it's been an interesting choice. All right, so Takenoko, neat game with a beautiful, if not surprising, deluxe edition. Let's go back here now to our chat and go through a few, and then I'm going to show you what's in this surprisingly heavy little box. But before I show you what's in this surprisingly heavy little box, we'll continue on to the next chat comments here. All right, Mike Jones really continues talking about deluxe editions of games. Well, that depends on whether or not you would consider a Shrinky Dink to be Eldrick's next ancient one. Oddly enough, Shrinky Dink, this is not the first time I've heard Shrinky Dinks mentioned when it comes to board game upgrades. Way back in the mid-90s, when my group of friends and I were playing Magic once or twice a week, and we were trying to come up with ways to develop little token creatures, Shrinky Dinks came into play in creating Magic the Gathering tokens. And mixed results there, but it was a way to create some really interesting, unique, different tokens. And if you needed a whole bunch of them, you had to make a whole bunch of Shrinky Dinks, obviously. But that's another way that Shrinky Dinks have been used to deluxify a game. So Mike Jones, I would totally think Shrinky Dinks could be a way to upgrade Eldritch Horror's ancient ones. Because I think that Shrinky Dinks are definitely an upgrade that is on the table, figuratively and literally. All right, let's continue on here. Kabuki mentions that she agrees with Toyota. For example, Kabuki says, "I own Dune, but there was such a nice fan-made version. I had a print and play copy made, and it totally slays the original game and is now the one that I play with." Beautiful game. Since we're mentioning Dune and we're mentioning game upgrades, all right, chat audience, Fantasy Flight kind of remade Dune, as most of us know, this game called Rex, Final Days of an Empire, which, because they could not get to reprint the game, the Dune license was no longer available, so they changed to the Twilight Imperium universe as their license for the game, and they reprinted it. Of course, it's got really nice units and pieces and bits and pieces like most Fantasy Flight games do. So the question is Rex a deluxe upgrade version of Dune, or is Rex its own animal? It's one that I struggle with trying to categorize all the time. So let me know, what is your opinion? Rex, Dune upgrade or not? Let me know in the comments below. In the meantime, we'll continue on here. Preyhawk mentions, he's talking about the comments. He says, regarding reading the comments that are posted before the show starts, Preyhawk's opinion is, yes, read the old stuff too. So there's one vote for reading the old stuff. And if you have additional ideas on that, add that in the comments as well. Maybe we can create some sort of neat mini game out of the whole thing. I don't know. Kabuki mentions here another great game, Ogre's Designer's Edition, which I believe was 12, 14 feet big, that box. Maybe not that big, but it was immense. And one of the biggest board gaming boxes I've ever seen. Ogre's Designer's Edition is another obvious choice. It is the least portable version of Ogre, but definitely the coolest. Wow, there's a lot of more deluxe editions of games being popped up here than were even on my list. So this is fantastic. There may be more deluxe versions of games out there than I even realized. And it's fantastic to see them coming up out of the woodwork. Jason mentions, personal game upgrade. Jason mentions, I upgraded my copy of Legends of Andor with miniatures. A deluxe version could even go so far to upgrade the other cardboard chits as well. That's a fantastic idea. I've mentioned it. I don't know if I've mentioned it, but talking about upgrades, we'll pause right here to talk about some other ways of upgrading things. I'm going to do something I don't like to do very often, but I'm going to show you a nice picture of Takenoko again, because I'm going to go grab something off my shelf. So pretend you're hearing elevator music play right now. Hey, that wasn't that bad. Sorry about that, but mentioning upgrading the miniatures and stuff in games. One place that you can go, and again, this isn't meant to be a plug for any specific, I'm just going to talk about what I want to talk about here. But I know that Cool Stuff Inc. has, they sell HeroClix miniatures. They will sell a bag of 100 randomly assorted HeroClix miniatures for about $15. And sometimes they go on sale. And I went, and you don't know what you're going to get. It's just a random assortment, but I wanted to upgrade. What's that game called again? Hero Chronicles? Guardians. There's this game, Guardians Chronicles, which I like, and it's one where I like to tweak the rule set a little bit and everything. But it's a superhero minis game with you, and so I wanted to get a whole bunch more superhero characters to throw into it. And look, there is that guy. Who is that? That's Cannonball. Thanks for joining us on the show today, Cannonball. Good to see your mini. They're not all Cannonball, though. Who's this? This is Lois Lane Superwoman. What? Lois Lane Superwoman? That's not right. That must be from an alternate reality, unlike my own. But, so you're going to get all these great, so here's a really great, pre-painted mini to use in the game. So you get a whole nice different assortment. Here's Sabretooth. Good to see you here. So anyway, about $15 or so, you can get just random assortment, which can be a great way to get some minis. I can't remember. It's been like a year or so since I got these. So I can't remember if it's if you can choose superhero ones versus fantasy ones or what have you. I think it's just whatever HeroClix ones they have left over. But it could be a great way to seed an army, a collection of different pre-painted minis, doing that route. So your post there reminded me of that potential upgrade, so I wanted to go and mention that one. But now let me talk about one more little personal upgrade before we end the show with the lightning round here. I want to show you what's in this box, because like was mentioned earlier in the show, metal coins are a fantastic way to upgrade a game, make it more immersive. Now, the problem with metal coins is that while they are awesome and fantastic, and I'm a sucker for them, I believe the website campaigncoins.com, they make my favorite ones. They're just these fantastic coins. Gold, silver, copper, different sizes, Celtic ones, Dwarven ones, Roman ones, everything. But the problem is, lots of times when you're trying to buy metal coins for your game, one single coin, they can be like 80 cents a piece. And spending, 80 cents per piece on fake currency is something that I just, didn't know if I wanted to make that sort of investment. So, came up with my idea. I've mentioned this in other videos and stuff before. What I did, if you're looking for a way to get some nice gold coins, is I went and got a bunch of this I guess only really works if you're in the US, but the Sacagawea gold $1 coins. And I was able to go down to the bank and get a bunch of them. And and they'll spill on the floor if you pick them up wrong. So that's going to be a fun thing to do after the show. But so these coins, the nice thing about these Sacagawea coins is, these are real. These are real metal coins. They have the plink. You put them down on the table, they have the weight and everything of playing with metal coins. And sure, they are even more expensive than fake metal coins because they are $1 a piece. But the nice thing about them is that if you ever need to liquefy them, you can. It's like, oh man, I want to get lunch. Well, I'll just grab 5 to 10 of these little metal coins and I'll go buy my lunch, and I can spend my game components to go buy lunch. Can't do that as often with the plastic poker chips, but you can try. Don't recommend it though. But anyway, so the $1 gold Sacagawea $1 US coins, fantastic upgrade if you're looking for nice looking, authentic looking gold coins for your games. They work great, and they can work in a variety of different genres of games too. There's some crossover there. They still kind of can be immersive. So that's my coin upgrade tip of the day there. So with the time we have left, what I want to do is at this point in the show, I usually start to feel guilty about all the comments that we haven't gotten to yet. So I'm going to go back to our chat comment, and for the last 5 or so minutes of the show, I'm going to hit the lightning round button, and we're going to try and get through as many of these comments as we possibly can. Andor, that's where we left off. So let's continue. Toyota mentions, one thing I have, Kabuki, is a game mat / game board that was user created for Elder Signs, and I never play without it anymore. Oh, gaming mats! Oh my gosh, there's a whole nother subset of gaming upgrades we could talk about. It makes the game so much better. It even has movement rules for moving. Game mats that have the turnaround order or frequently asked questions or little rule summaries on them are fantastic things. Gazencha mentions, your description of Electroshock Street Fighter reminds me of Pain Station, a coin-op art installation that tortured the players. I think Pain Station had 2 power-ups, quote-unquote. It's Pong, by the way. That's what it was, the game it was. Wow! I don't know what is scarier, the fact that someone else had that idea or that they actually implemented it in an art installation. That's something to think about. Thank you I'm glad to know it wasn't just me, though. I wasn't the only person that had that thought. So thank you for letting me know about that. That exists. Fail Road Express chugs by to say, I enjoy deluxe games occasionally. Let people choose. I let people choose what they want. Like Ticket to Ride 10th Anniversary Edition. Fail Road, only occasionally. So given the choice between deluxe and normal standard, sometimes you'll go with the standard. Very interesting. Noah joins us. Hello, Noah. Noah mentions, I think that chess is the ultimate example of games with deluxe versions. Oh, really good example. There are thousands upon thousands of versions of chess out there. Civil War to Simpsons to Star Trek, etc. That is true. If there was one game that was probably the most often deluxeified version, it is probably chess. Excellent example there. It's nice. I always like it when chess actually can work its way into our conversation relevantly, because it's one of those games that has stood the test of time, but gets overlooked so often. Gazencha mentions, the best chess sets, continuing chess, the best chess sets look gorgeous and are made of really nice materials, but retain the form of classic chess pieces for easy readability. For example, black and white marble sets and such. We could do a whole episode on chess sets. Okay, let's continue on though, because this is the lightning round. Gazencha also mentions, Go. The game Go is another one where deluxe editions are very common. A good set uses seashells. Oh, neat. Seashells for white, slate for black, and the board comes as a dedicated table. That's a really good one. I never would have thought of Go as one that could be upgraded like that, but the seashells and stuff, I like that idea. Mike Jones mentions, board games do not are not an immersive experience, at least not for me. Is it now really that raises a counter question of which games do you enjoy playing? Because I'm wondering if it's a certain genre of game. And maybe there are different games that you haven't played that would be more immersive. I don't know. This is a whole conversation in and of itself, but it is interesting to think about. Is it just the games that you've been playing, or is it the players that keep it from being immersive? There's no right or wrong answer there. It's just interesting because it is a different experience than I've had. KabukiKid mentions, the anniversary version of War of the Ring is coming out in February and cost about $390, including shipping. It's pricey, but I, for one, cannot wait for it. Thank you for the additional info there on the War of the Ring Deluxe version there. Sren mentions a very good point. If you change the rules too much in the deluxe version of a game, you actually end up with a new game or a second edition. So there is that fine line there to walk. Between just making a deluxe upgraded component-y version that looks nice and has new things and actually creating a revision to the game. That is true. Then that can definitely be a deciding factor on whether it's worth investing in a deluxe version if you already have the standard version. Mike Jones mentions they are too obviously abstract for that, which I don't know if I agree or disagree with you, because at this point I've lost track of what that was referring to. So Mike Jones, maybe. Well, let's continue on. AJ Mazing mentions, I really like expansions unless they cost me as much as, or sometimes more than, I paid for the base game. That is a really good question about expansions. When is an expansion, how big should an expansion be? And because I know Mansions of Madness has these huge expansions coming out, but they add a lot of new content to the game, and they're priced accordingly. And so I think there's some wiggle room there sometimes. But it is a good point. If I see an expansion that is almost as much as the base game, no matter what's in it, it always gives me pause too before I go and find out more about it. KabukiKid mentions another good point here. There are also versions of games that are not called deluxe, but are considered the far nicer version. For example, the 1999 Avalon Hill version of Acquire with all of its plastic buildings. That's true. Not seen as the deluxe versions, but some of these games have so many different versions that are printed over the years that you will... Cosmic Encounter is another one, just by the basis of having all these variations to compare against each other. Some will be seen as the more deluxe versions just by their nature. And then Mike mentions expansions are key. Deluxe stuff, not so much. Okay. Oh, and KabukiKid, since we were talking about it earlier, just in case you're listening to this and you were wondering, KabukiKid confirms there are supposed to be deluxe versions of the expansions for War of the Rings deluxe version coming later. Excellent. And I think we're going to have to end the show here with one more comment. So we'll get Squelch's comment in here. Squelch mentions, for me, the deluxe price point is usually a turnoff, unless you find it on the secondary market. In general, though, I would rather use that extra money to get a different game, more games, new games, and stuff like that. And that's a good point. That's what kind of brings us back there to the core question that I started with. The price point for these games. How does that affect our decision of whether or not we're going to invest in them? And also, too, I don't think there's a right answer or a wrong answer. And it's neat that we've seen each point of view on that question addressed in the chat today. So that is fantastic. And that would not have happened without the participation of all of you guys. So I want to, as always, want to thank you for stopping by and participating in this. But the conversation doesn't have to stop there, because for more board game news and reviews and commentary, I encourage you to stop by and subscribe to both the Pair of Dice Paradise and the Dice Tower YouTube channels. And since you're on the internet already anyway, stop by our Facebook pages and Twitter pages and join, like, subscribe, whatever they do to work. Do that there as well to continue the conversations, because continuing the conversations on social media is the way that we're going to have to do it until the next episode of the Metagame. And until that next episode of the Metagame comes along, I want to thank you again for joining me, because I've been Chaz Marler. And again, I haven't been alone. I have been along with the YouTube chat. I have been playing the Metagame. So thanks, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye, everyone.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.
Oh, and yes, I did accidentally skip over your microwave comment there, Proc. And just so you know, yeah, the microwave search, it continues. We're still working on it, but thanks for your concern, and I'll keep you posted on our progress.